So in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make the V-stitch. This is a lovely one to use for shawls or scarves, or even if you wanted lightweight blankets in the summer, just to have something to take the edge off. You can see through there it's a little bit lacy, and it is the same on the front as it is the back because it is a repeated pattern of row 2. So let's have a look at how we can do that. Hello, my name's Karen Stangram and welcome to Conquer Crochet, the channel for tips, tricks and techniques for conquering your crochet. Everything I talk about in today's video will be linked in the descriptions below. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss a single stitch. So if you're keen to get going with this video, give me a thumbs up and let's do this. For this tutorial I'm going to be using an Aran weight yarn. This is a Stylecraft Aran. I think the colourway is fondant. I have a 5mm crochet hook because that's the recommended size on the yarn label. If you want to use a slightly bigger hook than your yarn label recommends, you will get a much lacier pattern. So it depends on the sort of look you're looking for. But whilst you're starting out, I would suggest you either go with a 5 for an Aran or a 4mm for a double knit. So we're going to start off by making a slip knot. You can do this in whichever way you prefer. I prefer to make a loop, pull the yarn behind it so you can see it through that circle, weave your hook through, grab both ends and pull up. There are other ways of doing this, and I do have a tutorial in my beginner's guide that has different ways of doing the slip knot. If you'd like to go and have a look, I will put a link in the descriptions. So we're going to start by making a foundation chain. Now, various people have said you do multiples of 3, you do multiples of 2. I've always done it with multiples of 4, so that's how I'm going to do it today. So I'm going to make my foundation chain multiples of 4 up to 20, just because I'm doing a sample piece. So yarn over and pull through. I've made one chain. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So pause the video now whilst you make your foundation chain, and I will see you at the end of this chain. Remember, it needs to be in multiples of 4. Okay, so I've done my 20 as my sample piece, and I'm just going to chain 2 more as part of my turning chain. So we're going to start off making a V-stitch straight away, and a V-stitch is a treble, chain 1 and treble in the same space. That's UK terminology. In US terminology that would be a double crochet. So we're going to do our first V-stitch into the 5th chain from the hook, so we don't count the one on the hook. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to work into that 5th one. So yarn over, insert into that 5th chain, yarn over, pull through. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. We chain 1 and we do another treble in the same chain. So yarn over, insert into the chain, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is your first V. So you have these 3 chains here which act as a treble on the end of your piece of work, and you have a V stitch. So now we're going to skip 2 chains, 1, 2, so by skipping we're not going to work into them, and into the next chain we're going to do another V stitch. So that's another treble, chain 1 and treble, and that's your second V stitch. And obviously the reason it's called a V stitch is you have the V shape here, which that chain 1 gives you at the top there, that space between those 2 stitches. So again we're going to skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and in the 3rd one we're going to do another V stitch. So that's 1 treble, chain 1 and the second treble. So continue all the way down the line, you skip 2 stitches or 2 chains, yarn over, make your V-stitch with a treble, a chain and another treble. So continue to the end of the row, and when you get to your last 2 chains I will then show you what you need to do at the end. So I've come to my last 2 chains at the end, and what we're going to do here is to skip the chain and work a treble into the last chain of the row. So just a single treble in there. So what you get then is at the start of the row you have the chain that counts as a treble, and then a single treble with your V-stitches in between. So for row 2, and this is the repeated row that we're going to do throughout the whole of your piece of work, we're going to chain 3. So 1, 2 and 3, turn your work, and we're going to be working into the spaces created between the V-stitches. So we're not going to be working into the gap here, we're working in that chain gap where the 2 V's come down and make that gap there. Okay, so very important that you don't get confused. We're going into these gaps here, the 2 chain spaces, we're going into the V spaces. So we've already chained 3 to give us the height for the row, and we're going to work in that gap, in that chain space between the 2 parts of the V, and in there we're going to do a V-stitch. So we do a treble, chain 1 and another treble. We skip this gap here and we work into the next V-stitch with a V-stitch. So another treble, chain 1 and treble. Skip this chain space here, working into the V-stitch with another V-stitch, treble, chain 1 and treble, into the next V-stitch with another V-stitch, so treble, chain 1 and treble, and again into the next V-stitch, chain 1 and treble. So continue in the same way all the way down the row, and I will show you what we need to do at the end of this row. So pause the video now. So I'm at the end of my row. I'm going to do my last V-stitch. So treble, chain 1, treble. And then we have this gap here that was created by the chaining at the beginning, and we're going to do a single treble in there. If you wanted to, you could do it into the actual stitch, but it's okay to do it into the space as well, and that will give you your nice neat edges up the sides. So that's row 2, and row 2 is just repeated all the way through. So it's chain 3, turn your work and work V-stitches into the V-stitches of the previous row. And your V-stitch is a treble in UK terminology, a double in US terminology, a chain and then another treble. So treble, chain, treble, and you just do that all the way along your row until you get to the end, and then when you get to the end in that last space you just make 1 treble. So it starts off with a chain that counts as a treble and it ends with a treble, and that gives you the nice neat growth up the sides that you need. So I'm going to leave you there. I'm going to make a few more rows so you can see what it looks like when it's finished. So I've worked up a few more rows so you can see how the pattern looks as it progresses. And it's quite a pretty pattern. So you've got your lovely V's here going up. You just bring it a little bit closer to the camera, and obviously you can see sort of the laciness. And remember, I'm using an Aran yarn here, so it's a little bit thicker So if you're using something finer, and then you could use something finer with a bigger hook, then you would get a much more lacy look to your work. And obviously because it's a repeated pattern of row 2, it's going to be exactly the same on the front as the back. So that's how to do your V-stitch. I really hope you found today's tutorial useful. If there are any information that you need to find out about this video, have a look in the descriptions below where I post all the links to any freebies and other videos I think you might find useful. Don't forget, if you have enjoyed this video, to give me a thumbs up below. Don't forget also to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you've enjoyed it and you'd like to see more of my tutorial videos. There are 2 other videos on screen to help you on your crochet journey, and I will see you over there. Thank you so much for joining me on this one, and happy hooking!